How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Ooh, my stomach kind of hurts. I scarfed down that burger. And do you ever have the problem? I don't know if this is a uniquely me problem or not. Sometimes when I get very hungry, like I haven't eaten in a while, and my stomach actually starts to hurt because I'm so hungry, if I eat on top of that, it hurts worse.
Mm-hmm.
That happens to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. And I usually get I'll get like a stomach ache if I haven't eaten in a while and then I scarf down food.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty much what I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Tired. Me too.
So, you didn't sleep well?
I never sleep well when we have the podcast.
Really?
Yeah, because I know I have to get up early. So I wake up, normally I wake up at 5:50 in the morning. When we podcast, I have to wake up at 4:50. So I'm always afraid I'm going to oversleep and it makes it so I don't sleep very well.
Well, which if you had to choose, it was totally you in a vacuum, would you pick the morning hour or the evening hour?
If we had to do it the same way every time,
Yeah.
that's hard because I don't want to have every week have a night where I'm doing it, but at the same time, it's hard to wake up in the morning. Probably night. Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh, talk to me later. Maybe we can do that because I'm struggling in the evenings. Dude, so let me tell you a quick story.
Mhm.
So I take the kids have Spanish tutoring on Mondays and Wednesdays. Today's Wednesday. And what I have to do is I have to drop them off there, and then I usually turn right around and come home because I have an in-person client. But today I didn't have her, so I was just going to stay there. And it's totally fine. I can just stay there. I sit in my car. It's from 4 to 5 p.m. And I come home in time to like make dinner and then eat, calmly. And then we podcast 7 p.m. But there's this really sharp, I don't, it calling it a curb is almost giving it too much justice. It's like two curbs that meet at this very weird angle and they jut out in a perfect point of concrete. And I have popped my tire twice on it going to Spanish lessons in this neighborhood. And I did it again today. And the last time I did it was 3 weeks ago. And the first thing I do is it's just enough distance, this dang curb, so where I can get to this woman's house, but by the time I get to her house, there's zero air in my tire and it's like dunk, 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 like awful. And it's just sizzling. I can hear the air leaving the tire the whole rest of the way there. It's like a 30-second drive from the point of this devil curb. And I call my husband because I have most of the materials in my car, but I'm missing the wrench that kind of takes off the nuts. So I have to call him. But in my mind, I'm like, I just called him 3 weeks ago. His response at that time was good, but he was like, are you kidding me? The same curb. So, like, to call him again, I just really didn't want to do it. I was like, I can handle this on my own. I'm going to find somebody in this neighborhood. And by the way, this is the same neighborhood where they posted me in their neighborhood thread of picture of me sitting in the car saying, who is this lady? She's just sitting in front of my house, like looking around in the windows, which I wasn't doing, by the way. But I was roaming with my laptop looking for a place to plug in because whatever. Anyway, this is that neighborhood. So now I'm roaming looking for actual people to like help me change a tire. No lie, Laura. I told my Spanish tutor about that my friend sent me that post in her neighborhood. And she said, oh, it's probably that guy over there. He doesn't like my students parking their family cars. And that's where my car was parked. While I was in the car deciding what to do, I could hear somebody sitting on their porch going, I think that's the same one that was roaming around here last week. She's just sitting over there. And I was like, dang it. Do you have a wrench? Like, do you have something to help me change my tire? I didn't say that. But anyway, asked a couple people. They did not have things that would help. So I ended up having to call my husband. He was great. He came, he helped me. And on the way to the tire shop, I went the wrong way, added like 10 to 15 minutes to my drive, finally get to the tire shop, changed the tire, 15-minute drive home, went the wrong way again on the highway, 30, 35 minutes home. I'm just tired of like being inside my head sometimes. And I got home at like 7 p.m. I left the house at, 3:30, planning to be home by 5:30 with a nice relaxing evening, and I get home at 7.
Mm. Tires, I'm just thinking in my brain, as you're telling that story, tires are expensive.
Yeah, so it's like $100 a pop.
It is only $100. I feel like tires are more money than that.
Well, it depends on what type of tire you get. So this time I got a used tire.
That's true, because, well, you live in a cold climate too. Never mind. Because we have to get, like all season or snowish tires here.
I don't know what it is. I was like, just give me, what do you got? Just put it on the car.
Because I'm going to pop it anyway.
I'll
It doesn't
be back.
Yeah.
Actually, no. You should see this devil curb. I'm gonna take a picture of it, but except my plan is to never go that way ever again. But
Yeah.
I want to take it's black with rubber because of how many people hit this thing and pop their tires. In fact, one of the people I asked for the thing was like, "Was it that?" And I showed them on a map. They're like, "I popped my tire." You know how usually you hit a curb and it's like, "Oh crap, I hit a curb," and you might check your wheel for some scrapes. It's like if you even look at this curb funny, there's a hole in your tire. There's no leeway.
Yeah.
It's awful. So
I can see you doing that. Yeah.
yeah, it's my husband doesn't even react anymore. He's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And I texted him like, I'm gonna be a while getting home, like 30 minutes. He just went, okay. Like
Whatever.
you're only 10 minutes up the road, but okay, that's fine.
I am still sick. And I feel like I've been sick for like 4 podcasts now. I feel like it's been about 4 weeks.
Gosh.
I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but the kids were sick for the longest time. They weren't sick though. They just had a cough, and they never acted sick. And then my husband got the cough, and everybody had this cough forever. And I'm like, what's wrong with you guys? And then I got the cough, like, I don't know, weeks later. I don't know why it took me so long to get it. And now it hasn't left. And then I got sick again because Caleb got sick with, like, you could tell it was something new because he had a fever, whatever. Then I caught that. And then I got sick again. And now it's finally gone to my nose. Before it was like a cough. So I'm like, is this new or is this old?
That's so annoying.
Yeah. And it's doing that thing where it like drips, but you can't really blow it,
Dude, we're not even in fall yet.
I know. And I told Wayne, by the time I get over this cold, I'm going to get another one.
How's your quads?
My left one still hurts. So I did my workout Monday, the hard one. Mm-hmm. And the last curtsy lunge, I was like, nope, I can't do it. I have to be careful. If you can feel it gets like all tight and it starts to like like anytime it gets like to the where I'm stretching it, I feel like I'm gonna pull things apart. It's
gonna blow.
Yeah, like they're just getting too big. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Too big. They're blowing up and
they're like internally blowing up inside themselves. That's how big they're getting. Like the outsides aren't growing as fast as the insides. That's what's happening.
It's that pump. It's that pump that's making them. Yeah.
Too much eliteness happening in the inner dwellings of your quadricep muscles.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Well, I'm glad that that's mostly healed and that you're not crippled.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know. I can squat down now. Before I couldn't go past a certain, yeah.
Yeah. That's concerning.
I was like, I don't want to not work out. It's not even the pain. It's that I don't want to work out.
Most people would look forward to having an excuse to not work out. Yeah, I'm probably one of those people. I'd probably have that and be like, oh, wow, this is really terrible.
I don't have to work out now.
I'm gonna really be frustrated all this time that I can't work out, which I would be. So what I would do instead is just like some pull-ups and push-ups and to get out my buzz, but then I wouldn't be super mad about missing it.
While I was waiting for you, I jump up and down and I'll do things to see, to get blood flowing and whatever before the podcast, especially in the morning, because I'm kind of dumb first thing in the morning. I'm just not ready to talk. And I'm kind of dumb at nighttime too. It'd be better if we did it like, I can't wait till you move back.
I'll be moving back.
Yeah.
Get on a regular schedule. Daytime for both of us.
Yeah. was like I still have the tape on my wall of where I could jump and touch.
Oh,
So I figured I'd try to jump and touch it, and I like barely. I was like at the bottom of it, but I was like I haven't tried it running and jumping, so I figured I would
oh,
try like taking a couple steps, taking that head start and jumping, and I could almost touch my ceiling. It's like the
wow.
molding. I could touch the molding underneath my ceiling, so like an inch and a half below my ceiling.
Elite basketball player.
Yeah, I should have. I should have. Except I'm short. So
What could have been.
what could have been.
What you got for me?
You wanted to talk about minimalist training, right?
Yeah, I've been getting a couple questions about this lately, actually. Basically, people asking, what is the least amount that I can do to feel successful and to actually
Mm-hmm.
make some progress? And this has such a dynamic answer. Do you want me to
Yeah,
respond first, or do you have some thoughts?
I have some thoughts. So it depends. It depends on the person, and my answer has probably changed for this. More like a long time ago. If you asked me this, I probably would have had a different answer. Um, you probably want to do around the minimum 10 sets per exercise or per muscle. I mean, um, and how I would set up your workout, this is where my answer probably changed. So, long time ago, I would say, do more compound exercises because then you're going to be able to, like, because I'm assuming it has to do with amount of time, right?
Hmm.
That they want to, like, that they
Yeah,
care
it's
about doing the
likely
least
this
amount.
this person, yeah, is definitely the avatar for like somebody that asks this question is usually somebody who's under time constraints.
Yeah. So, I would have said, do a bunch of compound exercises so you're hitting multiple muscles, you know, at once, and you can get like just do a couple exercises and you're done. Do like the most effective exercises. And that's still my answer if you are a beginner or intermediate lifter, somewhere around there. But as you like move past that, a deadlift could take me all my like a full half hour just deadlifting because there's so many warm up sets. When I
Yeah.
first started lifting, I didn't even warm up. I didn't do warm up sets. I would just go right into it, which
Yep.
I wouldn't advise other people to do, but they're not as important. Like if I'm deadlifting 150 pounds, I don't need to warm up as much as if I'm deadlifting 250 pounds. Um, so it just takes so long to do that, and it would take your whole workout up. So I would focus on, like, instead of deadlifting, do like a Romanian deadlift or something like that, and exercises that don't take a lot of setup. So I wouldn't do hip thrusts either
Oh,
because
right.
they take so long. So focus on things like Bulgarian split squats. They don't really have a big setup, but they're a very effective exercise doing things like that.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with you. It definitely depends on the person. And this is such a gray zone answer because the very big overhanging truth is that if you're somebody who, because a lot of times this person also who would ask this type of question is somebody who feels overwhelmed getting started because they're so busy and they haven't quite mastered how to really prioritize like big chunks of high intensity volume training in their week. And so but then there's also people who maybe are a little bit more trained who just have time constraints, right? But a lot of times they have an easier time figuring out how to fit that in and being okay with it. So somebody who is a little bit more beginner is more common to ask this question. And the reality is the overhanging truth is that whatever you're at currently, if you do more than that, you're going to make progress. Like whether it's 10 sets a week per muscle group or not, right? So if you take somebody that's doing 0 sets and get them
Yeah.
doing 3,
Yeah.
they're going to make progress, you know? And so for that, I say, whatever you're currently doing, stop thinking too hard about the exact way that it needs to be structured and just look at your life and think of what you can realistically do. And then sure, it comes down to, well, what exercises do I do? And then that's somewhere that I can help or we can help. But identify what time you have realistically. If it's 10 minutes a day or if it's 1 hour once a week, be really real with that and then go from there instead of worrying too much about. So that's usually where I start with my advice on
That's
that.
a good That's a good answer, because then they won't get overwhelmed of I have to do this much or whatever, and then do nothing. Because some people think
Yeah,
if they just do one workout, what's the point? When it actually is better than doing none.
totally.
So
And not just from like a fluffy, oh, don't worry, a little bit's better than nothing. No, like actually scientifically, if you're not doing anything and you do a little bit
yeah,
more than that,
yeah,
than nothing, you will make progress. Like you're telling
true.
me if you do zero push-ups ever and you start doing push-ups, for a minute 3 times a day, or 3 times a week, not 3 times a day,
Hmm.
you're not going to make progress. You will be able to do
Yeah,
more. Will you hit a wall? Yes, you will, but don't worry about the wall yet. You
yeah.
just
Wait till you
start,
get there.
But if you want to go a little bit deeper than that, okay, we're talking about, like you said, the minimum tends to be around, again, and it depends on kind of where you're at. If you're a very beginner, then you're going to get away with less than 10. If you're more of an intermediate lifter, you can do around 10 sets per muscle group. And if you, as the more advanced you get, the more it goes up to around 20, 15, 20 sets per muscle group, the more advanced you get. And then
Hmm.
beyond 20, and these are intense working sets per muscle group. These aren't just like including your warm up sets. These are like your
Yeah.
actual intense sets. Once you get beyond like 20, you start to get minimal, you know, response. How would you phrase that? Minimal gain,
Diminishing returns.
diminishing returns. There it is. Start to get diminishing returns, right? So somewhere between 10 and 20, remember beginner 10. So if you take exercise and you split them up and you think 10 sets per muscle group, well, if you're thinking push-ups, that's, you can get that done in 2 sets of 5, in a
Yeah.
week. And you're also hitting your triceps in there. So now we've got triceps. So it's actually pretty easy to be able to hit that kind of rough minimum in 2 sessions, two, like, relatively. But the reality is you can split that up however you want. If you need to do 10 to 20 minutes a day, 5, 6 days a week,
Yeah.
or in 2 longer sessions on 2 days out of the week, or
Yeah.
in one really long session. But the problem with one really long session is by the time you get to the end, you're going to be tapped, you're just
Yeah.
going to be exhausted, and you're not going to be able to give the same intensity. And so it's probably not going to be as effective.
No, I would do at
I
least
would
two.
rather you do one shorter session if you're going to do
Yeah.
once in the week. What would be, so I was thinking now too with this, like, what would be your, like, or if I'm thinking of like what I recommend if somebody has a really limited amount of time and they can get in 2 or 3 chunks of 30 minutes.
Hmm.
That's a common. Most people can get in 2 or 3 chunks of 30 minutes. And most people do better than that than with the 10 to 20 minutes every single day. So 20 to 30, 3 times a week. How would you
Hmm.
structure that in an ideal world?
Definitely full body if you're going to do it 2 days, probably 2 or 3 days. And I would, depending, you know, I would start with, I would try to hit every muscle in the workout and start with the more bigger exercises and work your way down.
Yeah, the compound lifts first for sure.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking that I think what I would do if somebody had only 3 20 to 30 minutes, I'm curious if you'll agree with me on this, 3 20 to 30 minute sessions to dedicate to exercise,
Hmm.
exercise in totality, minus steps and stuff like that, but exercise. I think I would probably recommend one of those be cardiovascular. If we're looking really to optimize health on all fronts, I think I would say that one of them, and you can get away with not, you could do 3 full body, but I would say 2 full body, one, depending on the person, high intensity intervals, or maybe zone 2, depending on the person. And then the 2 full body sessions, I might even put in like a heavier lift where you require more rest and kind of focusing on strength. But
Hmm.
like you said, not a big setup, maybe not like a thrust or a deadlift, maybe like a Bulgarian split, something that's very, you can really build strength, but requires minimal setup, like you said. But then
Yeah.
maybe followed by like a 3 or 4 exercise circuit.
I disagree. I don't like that.
Cool. Tell me why.
Well, I mean, it depends on the person's goals, I guess. It always depends on your goals. I know cardio, like, it's gone the other way where people just say you don't need to do it at all. I still think, sorry, sound funny, still think that strength training and building muscle is a lot more important than cardio, and I would focus on that more. And I definitely wouldn't put circuits in the workout.
Cool. Why?
Why?
Yeah. So you disagree with me on the cardio. You would say 3 full body strength training days.
Yeah.
And then because you think that strength training is more valuable, especially for somebody who's maybe more in this zone where they're looking for like minimalists. It's like, we'll really maximize those sessions then.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't really like circuits. I mean, I guess it would make you get it done quicker. So like maybe add some supersets in there or whatever, but I know that you like to do that more than I do. So
yeah. I think I would I'd toy around with 3 or 4 exercises back to back. It would depend on what exercises they were, but I would also maybe just do 2 supersets.
Yeah. Yeah, supersets are cool. That's fine.
Supersets are cool. I'm a fan.
I am not really. I put them at the end. Like, I don't even usually schedule them. Sometimes I do. And then I will just, if I'm in a hurry, I'm like, okay, I can pair this with this and I'm going to do that. But most of the time, I don't put it in there like that and I just go through it.
I think I'm just always in a hurry. I don't even think there's anything going on. I think in my mind, I'm always in a hurry.
I get that.
I'm just always like, all right.
Yeah.
Like I can stand around in the middle of a deadlift. I can stand around in the middle of a squat, but I can't stand around after a single arm row. I can't stand around after some, dumbbell lateral raises. I don't care how taxing they were.
I always have so much going on in my brain that I don't get bored. So I'll go do that and then I'll be thinking about this thing over here and it's time for my set again. I don't scroll or do anything like that in between. I am constantly thinking about my day and what I'm going to do today and random thoughts. It's
funny because I'm trying to think, why is it different? Because I'm also not bored. My mind also has lots of thoughts, but my body gets bored. It's a physical boredom.
That's funny.
Like, I'm like, okay, it's enough of that.
No, I welcome the break. Yeah.
Yeah. I can stand around in between deadlifts, but yeah, I'm a fan of supersets.
And when it comes to health, cardio, important. But, there's so many, but I don't know the statistics on this because I've heard people say some crazy statistics on this. And I'm like, that can't be true. It was like, when you get older, something about breaking a hip and that like this many, it was like 90% of people pass away afterwards because that's an insane number. But I really think
90% of people pass away after breaking a hip.
It was some crazy number that I heard once, and I'm like, that can't be true. But just how important muscle and strength is as you get older, I think it's way more important than cardio.
Yeah, that's something I don't know if I definitely agree on the importance of strength. I want to do some more research on the impacts of like really high functioning cardiovascular health in older age and compare those.
Yeah, VO2 max is, an indicator of longevity
for sure.
Or whatever. But and I rarely ever do cardio and I'm pretty good. So.
But have you broken a hip at 90 yet? That'll be the
No, I won't.
Let's do a test. Break that hip. 3 days a week for the rest of our lives. One of mine will be cardio. None of yours will be. Then we'll throw ourselves down the stairs at 90 and we'll see who dies first. That will be the winner.
Our own study.
Yeah, that is interesting. No, absolutely. And it brings up, I have an in-person client who she has, she doesn't have diagnosed Ehlers-Danlos, but that's like she's either undiagnosed or she is just maybe in the realm of that, which is basically like hypermobility.
Yeah.
And I've had clients like this before. It's just fascinating because you have to train them totally differently. Like usually I'm trying to get people to go through full ranges of motion. With clients like this, I have to stop them from going through full range of motion and teach them how to like slow and control and no stop. We're not doing Astagrass, you know what I mean? But she also just her age in life and the things that she's focused on in terms of her health and stuff has not really been strength training. And so she's lost some bone density as well. And so she and I think also because her condition, she breaks things easily. And she came this week after she's pretty sure she like broke her hip. She got like hit and she thinks there's like a small fracture, and it's more of like a small fracture in the bone that will just heal kind of on its own. But I talk with all of my clients about this, but with her specifically, I'm like, it is so mega important that we focus on building strength and muscle mass and bone density, because you can rebuild bone density. And the impacts of having solid bone density, I heard it explained once, it's like a bamboo stick versus a straw. They're both hollow on the inside, but you go try to break bamboo, it's so hard, and a straw will just bend. So we want bamboo stick bones, we don't want straw bones. And it's so important, and I don't know how to overstate it enough, like you said.
Yeah. And that's why like things like Ozempic or whatever, where you aren't doing it in a way where you're trying to preserve muscle, can be dangerous, I think.
Especially at the age that a lot of people do it. A lot of people are doing it in their 30s and in their 40s when that risk of bone density and muscle mass goes down.
Yeah.
And is it possible to do a very extreme diet or something like Ozempic and maintain muscle? Yes, but it takes a lot of intention and focus, and probably convincing your doctor of why you need to do that, because I don't think the medical field is as on board or in tune with that yet. So they're not necessarily, warning their clients and their patients of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an uphill battle, essentially.
Yeah. And I know it's not like a huge, I know it's different. It's not the same, but you can still actually improve your cardio with weightlifting too. But it's, obviously you can only take you so far.
Maybe if you did like a bunch of circuits and supersets, you'd be doing better with your cardio in your.
I actually feel like squats or walking lunges or things like that, I'm out of breath afterwards.
You're right, because I was doing those squats today. My heart was thumping after 12 MRF and heels elevated back squats.
Yeah. 15.
But yes.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
But I want to just go on the record and say I don't recommend you put a bunch of circuits in your strength training.
No.
Generally speaking, that is not a good idea. It can be done smartly, but it's not something I recommend doing. Just because you're getting a little cardiovascular and you're getting a little strength training, you're taking away from both. You're taking away from your cardio by strength training during it, and you're taking away from your strength training by going fast and doing cardio. So you're just doing a bunch of nothing.
I think if you do it right, it's okay to have, programs built like, every once in a while where you do something like that, but just don't do it every single time.
Yeah. And like you said, it has to be done right. Somebody has to go in knowing, okay, these sets, it's going to be very challenging because they're back to back, but I need to make sure that they are like working sets. I'm putting my best effort in. I'm not rushing to the next. Just because it's a circuit doesn't mean I can't take 10 to 20 seconds to breathe in between. But when people enter like cardio classes or blah, 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 they're just grabbing the 10 pounds, using them for everything and just getting through, and you're just doing a bunch of nothing.
No.
Cool.
Would you want to do some overrated, underrated?
I do. Quick sidebar before we do those is I had a question about lifting belts this week, and I thought that might be a good thing to cover really quick. You don't use a lifting belt at all, do you?
No.
Have you ever?
No.
Me neither.
No, really?
Talk about minimalist. I'm a minimalist. I like to have. I don't like a lot of stuff. I don't even like to wear shoes when I'm training.
I mean, that's why I don't use straps. I don't use. I want to be able to. I want to lift as much weight as I can and get stronger, but I don't like to use tools to do it. Like I just want to be able to do it without the belt. And I in the real world, I won't have a belt. So
when you're really lifting 300-pound things off the ground, you won't have a belt.
No.
Man, when I was changing my tire today, I was deadlifting that thing. My husband goes,
Yeah.
it's one way to do it. I was like, well, how do you do it? He's like, just lift it up. And I was like, that's not how you're supposed to do things. This is why we do this.
Yeah. So I don't use a belt. I think it should, like, if you want to use one, that's fine, but I would only use it on your really, really, really heavy sets. Like when you're going, trying a new PR or something like that. I wouldn't use it all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Not use it all the time. One, because you need to actually know how to activate all the things you're supposed to activate when you're doing a lift, right? So it should be an accessory to help you. It shouldn't be something that is like a Band-Aid or something that you're scared to lift without it. Because also this is tied to that. People who use it for that reason, 100% you're using it wrong, because you're imagining that this belt is just wrapping around your midsection and somehow just keeping your spine safe. That's not how it works. You're actually not supposed to have the belt cinched around your waist. You're supposed to have it loose enough that you can stick your fingers inside, because the point of the belt is really more mental. It's about reminding the lifter that they're bracing properly. And the way you know if you're bracing properly is if your midsection is expanding inside the belt and you can feel that pressure. So instead of, I see people tightening these belts up, thinking that it's just, you're actually doing the opposite, because now you can't create that internal pressure and your spine is actually in more danger with a tight belt than it is if you actually learn to use it properly. And if you learn to use it properly, you start to realize that you don't actually need it on if you know how to properly brace all of the time. But that if you get to those really heavy lifts, because those are the times where you're just so taxed and your body is so taxed that you might release some of that pressure or forget to think about it, or you're thinking about so many other things, that having that belt on can help remind you to keep that internalized pressure in your core. But if you don't know how to brace properly, the belt's doing nothing.
And if you do it the wrong way all the time, where you are tightening it too much, your core is going to not be trained in proportion to everything else. So then if you don't wear the belt, you're more likely to get hurt.
Very good point. So if you're using it all the time, you're not, and the wrong way. I mean, if you're using it all the time the right way, that's fine, because you're still bracing and you're still filling it up. And sure, go ahead. If you want to use it for all your sets, that's fine. But guaranteed, if you're using it the right way, which means you've learned how to properly core brace, you will realize that you don't feel like taking the time to set up and put that thing on every time. You just realize you don't need it.
That's true.
Yeah. I've only used a belt a couple of times and it's been my husband's, so it's like too big for me anyway. So I've never actually gotten like my own. I considered it. I was considering just getting one and toying around with a little bit.
Maybe when I'm old or something, I will. I'm not old yet.
That'll be my over the hill birthday present. I need a lifting belt now.
I'm 45 now.
Because if I break my hip, Laura says 90% chance I'll die.
I wish I could find that clip.
I will say, I mean, it's, whatever you saw, that's probably BS. But, the older you get, literally a fall is usually what's the downhill slide, right? Yeah. That's the truth of it.
Yeah. It was like, it was so crazy. Or it was something like 50% of people die from that when they get older. I don't remember. It was
a little bit more moderate.
Yeah.
I feel like I could believe that around 50% of people who are like in their 90s end up not dying from a bone break, but like a fall being the thing that set them on the
it's
path
like they that happens and then it snowballs. It's like that they die within a year after that happening.
Broke a bone next day. Couldn't wake up. Dead. How'd she die? Broke a femur. That's not really how it works. Broke a toe. She stubbed it. Now she's gone.
But it's like they can't get up anymore and do stuff and
you heal so slowly, and it's just it's just your sign to your body that like, nah, I feel like we're good.
I think we're done.
This has been a good run. If this is the way things are going to go, then we're going to start slowly shutting down. We don't want to do that. We can send a different message to our bodies, ladies.
Yeah, I want to be deadlifting when I'm 90.
Heck yeah.
Not 300 pounds.
Of course I can. Yeah.
But,
Of course I can imagine that.
Yeah.
It actually makes a lot of sense in my head.
Does it?
Yep.
Deadlifting at 90?
Yes.
I'm sure my training will evolve as I get older. I won't be trying to hit
Yes, I
new
hope it will.
PRs on things. It's just,
Hit that 300, girl, so you can like go downhill in peace,
Yeah. Right.
You know how my grandmother always used to say, I have these memories of her showing me pictures of when she was younger and being like, wasn't I beautiful? Wasn't I just beautiful? And I've literally thought to myself before, like, by the time I'm like in my 80s, I'm going to recognize how stunning I was. We're all just like, youth is amazing. It is just everybody
Wow.
is just stunning when they're in their 20s and 30s. I don't care. Like, you're all stunning because you get to the 80s, 90s, you're going to look back and be, dang. My
Wow.
grandmother would be like, I was a bomb. I had all kinds of guys after me. And I'm like, yeah, gay mom. Yes.
That's funny.
But you're going to be like showing your grandkids and you're going to be like, it'll be like a photo. I used to lift 300 pounds. I was strong.
I was strong back in the day. I could also jump 2 feet in the air. I was just.
Let me show you the tape on the
special.
wall. I still got it out back. I jumped right up there.
All of a sudden, I have a Southern accent.
Every time I do like voices, they come out that way. Doesn't matter.
All right.
Overrated, underrated. Hit me.
All right.
I actually have one. Go ahead.
Muscle soreness.
Oh, massively overrated.
You think it's overrated?
Yeah, because people think they need that muscle soreness to have a good workout. That's why it's overrated. I still like having. I like having it. When I feel sore, I have a little bit of pride. You know what I mean? I'm like, I go to Taekwondo. I'm like, man, guys, my legs are sore. Squats,
I actually think it's underrated because I think it's gone so far in the other direction where people are like, no, you don't need to get sore. The sore is, what, blah, blah, blah. When all the things that make you sore are things that help you build muscle. If you up your volume, you're more likely to get sore. If you are getting close to failure, you're more likely to get sore. If you are focusing on the eccentric, you're more likely to get sore. If you are doing the long length, training in those long lengths, you're more likely to get sore. So all the things that make you sore are more likely to be things that help you build muscle. It's just not, just because you didn't get sore doesn't mean you didn't have a good workout though.
Right. So it's interesting because I agree with you, but our answers are coming from based on where the pendulum is in the industry, which makes sense because it's called overrated or underrated, which is not your personal opinion on it. It's how it's right. It's rated in the space.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Just because something is overrated doesn't mean you think it's worthless or whatever. Right. Underrated, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think I would say overrated or underrated, I guess maybe depending on the person. So for somebody who's like, oh my gosh, I'm never sore. What's wrong?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because another good point is like when you're a more of a beginner, you should maybe be sore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you should.
It's at this point in training where I'm not relying on being sore all the time. I know what I'm doing and I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're more in the beginning and you're never sore, I would say, well, I would say to somebody who's more of a beginner or like, I'm never sore, like, yeah, we should probably look at what you're doing.
Yeah, you might not be pushing hard enough.
Yep.
Yeah. And novelty is the biggest thing I feel like that makes you sore, but I also feel like novelty is important for building muscle. It's not necessary.
I always know when I've been accidentally neglecting a certain area, because then when I do hit it in a new program, I'm sore. I'm like, oh shoot, I did not realize.
Definitely. All right.
Yeah, those lengthened positions, man. You do a stiff leg RDL in a training block, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Training to failure.
Training to fail. That's a good one. I know my personal opinion on training to fail. I'm trying to think of like where I would rate it. I actually think I would call this underrated.
Underrated.
Yeah. Maybe in a similar vein to getting sore, because I feel like people don't understand how intense something actually has to look in order
Mm.
to elicit change in your body.
Yeah.
And failure is a little bit nebulous, because do I want you like absolutely crumbling on the ground? No,
Mm-hmm.
but failure means you are going to your absolute max. And I think that so many people, especially women, are so shy of that. They're rating themselves at a 9 at a 10 exertion,
Yeah.
and you watch them lift, and that sticking point was smooth, baby, like butter, and I'm like, girl, that's like a 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?
I was going to say overrated because it's not necessary. You're going to get the same, benefits by stopping a rep or two shy. But it's same thing. It depends on where you're coming from, of who you're talking to. So I do think it's a good idea to train to failure every once in a while so that you know where that is. Otherwise, you
Yes.
think you're at an 8 RPE when you're at a 3. So,
Yeah, like when you said, you could get the same effect stopping 1 or 2 reps shy, but a lot of people don't know what 1 or 2 reps shy actually is.
mm-mm.
You have to go to failure in order to learn what that is
Mm-hmm.
for you.
When I'm programming, a lot of times I'll do, like, especially not for things like squats or deadlifts or something like that, but something like a lat pull down. I'll do something where it'll be like 7, 8, 9 or 8, 9, 10 or something. So that last set I'm RPEs at those numbers. The last set I'm going as hard as I can and going to failure because it's
Mm-hmm.
my last set. I know I don't have to do another one. And then I know next week, how hard to push.
Yeah, and in client programming, I'll be telling them like how many reps to hit, but then I'll leave one open, and
Mm-hmm.
AMRAP, as many reps as possible.
Yeah.
Like, all right, using that same weight, and
Yeah.
that's always fun because I'll have them log their RPE too, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
put like an RPE of 8 or 9, but then they use the same weight for the next set, and instead of hitting 8 reps like I told them to before, they hit like 15.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so let's have a conversation about RPE now again.
Yeah.
I've already talked about it, but now let's do it again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I could see. So you think it's overrated?
Overrated just because it's unnecessary. You could go through your whole training career never
I
going to
also think
failure.
it's important to make a distinction between strength training and hypertrophy training, because when you're
Mm-hmm.
training for strength in like a deadlift, it's going to be a little bit different than if you're training for hypertrophy, and they're going to failure, quote unquote, is going to feel different.
Mm-hmm. And for strength, it's unnecessary to go as close to failure, but also if you're testing a PR, you're probably going to get to failure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
yeah.
it's more of a central nervous system failure versus maybe like a muscular failure.
Yeah.
It's not like your hamstrings are just going to be so burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in a hamstring curl, you can take that specific muscle to a different, you get that
Mm-hmm.
lactic acid buildup, that burn, and get close to failure. It's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right.
Next.
The mind muscle connection.
Mm. Um, I don't know how it's rated. It's incredibly important, but how is it rated? Underrated.
Underrated?
Yeah.
We're opposites on everything.
Oh, this is so fun. I like when
Yeah.
we disagree.
Yeah. We're agreeing, but we just disagree on the
Right.
yeah.
Oh, I think it's again, so I was going to say I think it's very important. That's not what rated means. It's how it's rated. And I don't know. I feel like underrated. I don't think people talk about it enough.
It depends on who you talk to, I guess. I don't think it's as important. I think if I'm doing an exercise and I don't feel the muscle that I'm supposed to be feeling, that muscle still gets sore the next day. I still work that muscle even though I wasn't like connected to it while I was doing the
Hmm.
exercise.
Yeah, but you as an advanced lifter maybe have learned that ability. But there's a lot of people there's so many other assistance muscles that pick up the work of how many people do a single arm row and are working their biceps and their traps way more, and they're not hitting their lats at all. And you can do that for years And I did that for years actually with Rose, and I was constantly not really understanding how to properly retract my shoulder, how to properly like squeeze the dumbbell and activate where I
Yeah.
needed to act. Now I have these traps that don't match necessarily the work that I do. I don't mind, but it's interesting because it's something that I've learned over the years.
That's true, but I feel like it's more of a form thing than actually trying to connect with the muscle.
I think form is part of it. And I think muscle's another. It's kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg, because I think for
Mhm.
some people, and it depends on the person and how they connect and what kind of cues work with them. For some people, just helping them master their form with all the right cues helps them engage the right muscles. But for some people, even after doing that continuously, until you really get them, like I'm thinking of a deadlift, thinking like a Romanian deadlift. Sometimes I can really get somebody to learn how to do a proper Romanian deadlift when they're starting from nothing by just walking through the cues. But sometimes you think you get there and they're just still not, they're still just standing up. And it's really hard to tell that they're just standing up because the movement looks really good, but they're really not utilizing their glutes to do that hip thrust forward, or they're still putting a lot more work in their low back without realizing it. And when I really stop and be like, this is the muscle that needs to be working, and we do glute bridges ahead of time, feel that squeeze, feel that burn. Now mimic that here in the RDL. Totally different feeling they have now. All of a sudden, no more low back pain. My glutes are burning. There we go. Like now
Yeah,
we're in it. You know, so I
that
think
makes
it
sense.
depends.
Yeah. I would just say that I wouldn't make it a your biggest priority when you're lifting. So it's like a tertiary importance compared to
Ooh, what
some
a
of the
word.
other things.
Did that mean third importance, or is that a different word?
Yeah, yeah. So you got
Tertiary?
like primary, secondary, tertiary.
How do you spell that?
I don't know.
God,
Pertiar. I just spelled. I don't know.
my third grader had he has like a social studies test tomorrow, and his teacher put some little game on his Chromebook to play to practice, and he's reading this like, who makes rules for states and stuff, and where do you find the rule, whatever, and it said something about that you have to pick four, and one of them was like state's constitution. I was like, well, there's no state has their own constitution. That's not the answer. That ended up being the answer.
They do. All the states have
I don't.
constitutions.
I walked away. I said, I'm done. You kids, go get your dad. Like, what is this? I don't understand. It's third grade social studies. I was an elementary teacher, for goodness sakes.
I I knew that.
I did not. Clear. I was like, well, that does not make sense. The Constitution of the United States is for the country. So right away, we know we can eliminate that one. Let's eliminate some others. Whew.
That's funny.
Yeah, as it came up red, he just looked at me all angry. I was like, you know what? I'm out. Top first grade for a reason.
Yes. So I'm just saying it's not the most important thing. So if you're doing an exercise and that's what you're paying the most attention to,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. I can see that angle.
I see your point too.
Cool.
All right. Creatine.
Oh, right now? Actually, you know what? Maybe. Ooh, I was going to say maybe overrated. You're nodding because you're overrated. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going overrated. Though, I was going to say overrated. Okay, so it's my thought process. I was going to say overrated because I feel like the pendulum swing with creatine. The pendulum swing with creatine is so far right now. And everybody and their mother, literally, because it's a lot of women, I just take creatine, blah, blah, blah. And the reality is, dude, if you're not training regularly in your week, if you don't have the building blocks already done, the creatine's not going to do anything for you. If you, like we're talking about, if you're not training close enough to failure, if you don't actually know, then creatine does nothing, because creatine barely does anything for the advanced lifter. It's like a rep or two, or like a 2% increase on your max weight that you might not even notice. So somebody who's not even close to that yet is not really getting any benefit from creatine. But then my mind switched to, but there's all this research pointing to all these other benefits of creatine, especially as people get older, and like the mental and aging and clarity and mood. So then I started to think, well, maybe not. Maybe everybody should just be taking it. And
I would say overrated based on your first point. It's an overrated, like we said, doesn't mean that we think that it's worthless. It's
Right.
just that so many people are so worried about, should I take creatine? Should I do this? Should I do that? When it's just like, go work out.
Yeah.
Go work out, train close to failure, all the stuff that you said, eat protein, do these things. And I guarantee it's going to be way more beneficial than taking creatine. If you're already doing all those things, then creatine might have a small effect on your progress, but it's not as important. Like, people focus on these little tiny details of things.
Yep.
You focus on
It's
the big
like,
stuff.
so I guess I would say in the fitness space particularly, it's a bit overrated right now. But in the health and wellness space, it might be reaching proper ratedness.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
that.
we're there yet, but I think we're in the realm of properly rated.
Yeah.
And overall health and wellness.
Agree.
That was a good one.
Yeah. All right. Last one.
They're all, I think I've praised every single one of these. This
Recomping.
last one better be a banger.
Recomping.
Oh, underrated. Everybody wants to bulk or cut. Just sit in maintenance.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a 30 to 50 busy career woman with kids. Like, man, just sit in maintenance. Especially if you're a beginner.
Yeah.
If you're
definitely.
even a beginner intermediate.
I agree. I think it's underrated because
finally
you can make a lot. I agree with you on creatine. You can make a lot of
that's right.
progress at maintenance and recomping without having to go to extreme either way, and you could just sit there for a while.
Yep.
And you're happy. And the progress, it's slower progress, but you can endure it forever.
Yeah.
Eventually you'll need to do some cuts and bulks or whatever, but it takes a while before you need
it really
to do
does. That. Yeah, especially if you're more in the beginner zone, or even if you currently strength train, but you really haven't ever, you've always been scared to eat more. You've really never pushed to your max. You think you might be an intermediate lifter, but you're actually probably not. And that's no diss to you. That's a good thing. Like, you are in a really great spot because you can eat at maintenance and see really tremendous aesthetic results as well as strength results. You can really reap the benefits of that whole magic is maintenance period.
Yeah, definitely. I wrote an article on that more recently, talking about all the people that can benefit from recomping.
Link it in the show notes.
Okay, I'll link it. I'll link it in the show
notes.
Link
that. That's linked in the show notes.
I'll have to remember. Maybe write a note. Did you have one? You said you had one.
I just have a random one because of a podcast I listened today. Steak.
Well, most people love steak. So it's
love steak.
I love steak. So it's highly rated. Are we rating it on, are we talking about taste, health?
Take that as you want. You can go wherever you want. Steak.
I'm going to say overrated if I really think about it, because it's expensive. It's very expensive. And ground beef is yummy, which is much cheaper.
Did we listen to the same podcast?
No, I don't know what podcast you're talking about.
When you listen to it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Because I like ground beef with things, and it's, it's very tasty, but it's much cheaper. So
I think ground beef is underrated. I think ground beef gets a bad rap.
Yeah, that's true. Ground beef is, I love ground beef. Yeah. I'm going to say overrated. I love steak though. Like I don't. Don't
worry. Steak knows. You don't need to let it know that you love it.
I love you, steak. Yes. I'm not dissing you.
all the dead cow in your freezer knows. Don't worry. Heart. I agree. I think it's overrated. I agree with the points basically, that because, ground beef is cheaper and you can get pretty much the same macros.
Yeah.
And, I think it's delicious.
It's delicious. Plus the whole carnivore thing with people, pushing that so much that I don't think you need to eat it for every meal. You have a lot of saturated fat. So
I do think that for a while, steak and beef in general were probably underrated because of
Yeah.
that fear of like cardiovascular and saturated fat and all
Yeah.
that stuff. You know, I was reading, this is a whole thing. I was reading a some research on fats in general. I was like
Mm-hmm.
just down a rabbit hole. And I was reading that there's studies, and one of the reasons why this whole giving some kind of minimum on saturated fat is actually not super valid, but there's still, you'll still, anytime you Google anything, you'll read,
Yeah.
no more than 20 gram, whatever, saturated fat, per
Yeah.
day. But it really comes down to the packaging of the fat in the food that you're eating, because there was I read something, it was a direct comparison of cream and butter with the same gram they were feeding people of saturated fat, and the LDL and HDL levels, cholesterol, were massively different. The butter raised the bad cholesterol and overall cholesterol, and the cream did not at all.
Oh, I wouldn't have
And
thought that.
yeah, very interesting. I want to read a little more because they think it's because of this like one compound or the way that it's whatever. But it
Yeah.
really comes down to individual foods and not necessarily saturated fat
That's
as
true.
a whole.
I've heard that about steak too, and beef and things, is that it doesn't have the same negative effects of other types of saturated
Right.
fat, and they still need to do more research on it, but it doesn't seem to have that same negative health effects.
Exactly. And this one that I read was like April 2023, so that's very recent in terms of like nutrition science and stuff. But they did then a butter and cheese comparison, and then like a cheese and cream comparison. And cheese, very similarly, it didn't raise like the bad cholesterol or overall total cholesterol, but
That's
butter specifically did. So, and yeah, it was like some they think maybe this compound, et cetera, but it's more, studies need to be done. But very interesting. It just points to, again, though, vary your diet, eat whole foods, and eat a variety, because butter's not bad, but you shouldn't just be all of your fat should not be coming from butter.
No.
Yeah, but that's common sense, right? Like just have a variety.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't limit yourself to 5 foods.
Yeah.
Like
if you're hitting your protein, if you're hitting your fiber, and if your calories in a reasonable amount of range, then you're going to be fine, because that's not going to leave enough fat grams for you to even hit that 20 grams of fat coming from butter anyway.
Yeah.
Guaranteed, if you're getting 20 grams of fat a day from butter, there's other issues. It's not that just the butter's bad. It's the whole picture.
Yeah. That's 100. Oh, yeah. 180 calories. Is that what that would be?
20 grams of fat from butter. Actually, that's probably pretty easy to hit.
Yeah.
30 grams of fat from butter.
Because that's almost that's like a little less than 2 tablespoons, I think.
It's a lot of that's a lot of butter.
Yeah.
If you're eating 2 tablespoons of butter without realizing you're eating 2 tablespoons of butter, I maintain it's really not that much butter, but I maintain if you're eating 2 tablespoons of butter a day without knowing you're eating 2 tablespoons of butter a day, we got to look at your whole diet.
Yeah. I used to put butter on my veggies because it's really good, but now I use olive oil.
I'll put a little butter in there for that flavor. Yeah. Butter on a bagel is unlike anything.
I'm a cream cheese person. Sesame seed bagels with cream cheese, so good.
That does sound good. Oh my gosh,
yeah. I love bagels.
My belly feels better. I think I might go eat a bagel. Thanks for listening. If you liked this, please give it a subscribe and a like and a comment, 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. See you next week.
Bye.